Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are plunging into a topic that sits right at the heart of how we build the future: understanding responsible and ethical AI.
It's um it's a really crucial area now, isn't it? But sometimes the terms, the concepts, they can feel a bit, well, fuzzy.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe a bit theoretical. So, our mission in this deep dive is to unpack what's important here, what these ideas really mean for you as AI becomes, more and more part of everything.
So it's good. Where should we start?
Well, you often hear ethical AI and responsible AI mentioned together. Are they the same thing, or?
That's a great starting point. They're definitely linked, very closely connected, but they are distinct. They each have a unique, vital role to play.
Okay, so how do we think about that distinction? What's the core difference?
Think of ethical AI as being about the what and the why. It deals with the values, the sort of moral compass, the principles that should guide how we approach AI.
So it's asking the big philosophical questions.
Exactly. Like, what does fair actually mean in this context? How do we make sure we're protecting human dignity? How do we minimize potential harm?
Okay, so principles like fairness, transparency, accountability, privacy. That's the ethical AI bucket.
Precisely. That's ethical AI. It's about grounding the technology in human-centric ideals. It's kind of like the ongoing societal conversation, maybe even rethinking our basic social contract as AI gets more powerful. It sets the ethical guardrails.
Got it. Ethical AI is the vision, the values. So responsible AI must be about making it happen.
You nailed it. If ethical AI is the compass pointing towards those values, responsible AI is the map, and importantly, the actual journey. It's taking those ethical principles and asking, okay, how do we actually do this? How do we build and deploy AI systems this way?
So it's about putting those principles into practice across the whole life cycle.
Right. From the very start, like when you're gathering data, through training the models, deploying them, monitoring them out in the wild,
Yeah.
even thinking about how you eventually shut a system down responsibly.
Okay, so it's focused on the concrete actions and outcomes.
Exactly. Tangible stuff. Building systems you can actually show are transparent, that are secure, that can be audited, and making sure they line up with regulations, both the ones we have now and the ones we see coming. It bridges the gap between the ideal and the actual system.
So ethical AI is the compass, pointing the way morally. Responsible AI is the map and the toolkit to actually walk that path correctly.
That's a really good analogy, yeah. They really need each other.
You can't effectively have one without the other in the real world, can you? What happens if you try to separate them?
Well, you could try, but it wouldn't lead anywhere good. Ethical AI on its own, without responsible AI. It's just wishful thinking, really. You might have these great goals like we want fair AI, but without the practical steps, the frameworks, the how-to, it just stays abstract.
All talk, no action. And what about the other way? Responsible AI without that ethical foundation.
That might be even riskier, in a way. You could technically build systems that tick all the boxes, transparent, secure, maybe even legally compliant for now.
Yeah.
But if those rules or the design itself lacks a strong ethical core, the system could still end up doing harm.
Like unintentionally reinforcing biases.
Exactly. Or subtly eroding privacy, or being used in ways that weren't intended but are harmful.
Ah.
It could become like compliance without a conscience, just following rules without asking why.
So they really have to work together. The ethics inform how you build responsibly,
Right.
and the responsible practices give you the tools to actually achieve those ethical goals.
Absolutely. That combination is how you build AI that isn't just, legal, but that people can actually trust and that benefits society. It's where the theory meets reality.
Okay, but hitting that sweet spot, it involves facing some pretty big challenges, right?
Yeah.
Especially as AI gets more powerful, like with generative AI models.
Oh, definitely. The ethical risks scale up with the capabilities. And there are some really pressing challenges right now.
Like what? What are the big ones we need to watch?
Well, a major one is bias and discrimination. And this isn't always about someone trying to be biased. AI learns patterns from data. If that data reflects existing societal inequalities, well, the AI often learns those too.
And can even make them worse.
Yeah, it can amplify them. Think about AI used in hiring. If the historical data shows biases, the AI might learn to unfairly screen out certain groups, even if nobody programmed it to do that explicitly.
And then there's the whole issue of fake content.
Right, misinformation. That's exploded. Generative AI can create text, images, even videos that look incredibly real but are completely false.
Deep fakes and things like that.
Exactly. Fake news articles, manipulated media. It's becoming easier and faster to create convincing falsehoods at scale. That's a massive challenge for trust, for democracy, everything.
And sometimes we don't even know how the AI reached a conclusion, the black box problem.
That's transparency and explainability. It's a huge issue, especially with complex models like deep learning. They can give you an output, maybe a loan decision or a medical insight, but figuring out the exact steps or factors that led to it, often incredibly difficult.
Which makes it hard to trust, hard to fix if it's wrong.
Exactly. How do you challenge a decision you don't understand? How do you audit it? Especially critical in high-stakes areas.
And underlying a lot of this is data. AI needs so much data.
Which brings us to data privacy. It's a constant balancing act. AI thrives on data, but we have to respect individual rights, keep data secure, give people control over their information. The very fine line between innovation and intrusion.
It really feels like these aren't just tech problems, they're deeply human, ethical problems.
Absolutely. They underscore why we need clear ethical lines in the sand and strong ways to govern these systems.
So, okay, we see the problems. How do organizations actually start putting this into practice? How do they move from saying, we want ethical AI to doing responsible AI? What are the building blocks?
Yeah. So moving to the how, several key areas stand out. First, transparency is critical. But it's not just about having technically explainable models, though that's part of it. It's also about clear communication.
With the people actually using the AI.
Yes. Being upfront about what the system does, what it can't do, what the potential risks are, and how someone can question or appeal a decision. It's about honesty.
So technical tools plus clear communication. Makes sense. What else?
Stakeholder engagement. This is really important. Building responsible AI isn't just a job for the data scientists or engineers.
You need lawyers, compliance folks.
Exactly. Legal, compliance, HR needs to think about workforce impact, marketing needs to understand how to talk about it, and crucially, you need people who really understand the specific areas, the subject matter experts.
Because AI touches everything.
It really does. You need that broad perspective and buy-in.
And someone needs to be clearly in charge of different pieces.
That leads to governance and accountability.
Yeah.
You need clear processes. Who owns data quality? Who is responsible for monitoring the model once it's deployed? Who signs off on risk assessments? Having things like clear roles, maybe using RCI charts or robust documentation, ensures someone is actually accountable throughout the life cycle.
Okay. And the legal landscape is changing so fast.
Which makes regulatory readiness absolutely key. You can't wait for a law to pass and then try to patch things up. You need to build compliance thinking into the process from the beginning. Stay aware of things like the EU AI Act, what's happening in the US, other regions, and conduct regular checks, audits to make sure you're staying compliant.
And what if you're not building it yourself? What if you're buying an AI tool from another company?
Great point. Vendor oversight, that's essential. Just because you bought it doesn't mean you're off the hook.
Yeah.
You're still responsible for how that third-party tool impacts people. So you need ways to check that your vendors meet your ethical standards, your security needs, your legal obligations. You can't just outsource the responsibility.
Wow. Okay. So it really is a continuous effort. It's not just a checklist you finish once.
Not at all. It's an ongoing commitment woven into how you operate, how you develop, how you deploy AI. It requires constant attention and collaboration.
So let's bring this back to the listener. We've talked ethics, we've talked responsibility. What's the big picture takeaway for someone navigating this AI-driven world?
I think the core takeaway is that this stuff, ethical and responsible AI, isn't just a nice to have, it's foundational. It's about building public trust. Without that trust, the amazing potential of AI just won't be realized, or worse, it could be actively resisted.
And for companies or organizations actually using or building AI, getting this right isn't just about avoiding problems, right? There are actual upsides.
Definitely. Beyond reducing risks, you build better, more robust systems. You foster deeper loyalty with customers and users because they feel respected and safe. You gain societal license to operate, essentially. It helps shift the entire frame from just what cool things can we build with AI to the much more important questions. What should we build, and how do we make absolutely sure we do it the right way?
And that perspective matters whether you're actually coding the AI, making decisions about using it in a business, or simply interacting with AI systems every day, which is pretty much everyone now.
Exactly. Understanding this difference between the should and the how and why they both matter is really key for everyone navigating the future.
So we've covered quite a bit today. We started with understanding the why, the values of ethical AI. Then we moved to the how, the practical steps of responsible AI.
And crucially, how they absolutely must work together.
Right, especially when facing those tough challenges like bias, misinformation, transparency issues, and privacy concerns.
It's definitely a complex landscape, But focusing on these interconnected ideas gives us a clearer path forward, I think.
Okay, so to wrap up our deep dive, here's a final thought for you to consider. How does really grasping this difference between what we should do, the ethics, and how we actually make it happen, the responsibility, change how you look at the AI you encounter every day? Whether that's your streaming recommendation, your email filter, or maybe even a more complex system making decisions that affect you, something to think about.